Hello, my name is Jared Etheridge, and I did my written report on Molière. I'm a music student here at Georgia College, and I'll just start from the beginning. Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, also known as Molière, was born in Paris, France, on January 15, 1622. His father was a well-known upholsterer of the upper class, and his mother was from a rather wealthy family of the territory. He lost his mother at a young age, and was never particularly close to his father. It's understood that he had some sort of elementary education before being accepted into the Collège de Clermont aux Jesuits. Being a very prestigious college of scholarly pursuits and merit, Molière was thrust into an academic setting that would be both stringent and intense. He would also get his first bit of theater experience in this program. Molière was on track to study law and business like his father in order to take over the business, but this would never come to fruition. The soon-to-be renowned performer/playwright would have a change of heart that would change his life. His father's title as valet of the king's chamber and keeper of carpets and upholstery would be given to him before his life of theater progressed. This title would be of great use to him in the future, as it would give him many connections to the royalty and wealthy individuals, and also a modest income. Following his momentous change of heart, Molière chose to work with Madeleine Béjart in order to open up a theater that would be called the Illustre Theater. This first attempt would not go very well due to the increasing debt that was incurred by the rental price of the building. The theater would only be open for 2 years before closing. This flop would give Molière, leader of the troupe and the one responsible for the payments, a brief stint in jail for not having the money to repay the debt. It is unclear whether he was in jail multiple times, but it has been said that someone absolved the debt for him and released him, but again, no one knows who it was. It wouldn't be long before he and Madeleine would go back into another troupe, and soon he would head that troupe. Molière was, at this time, inspired by the Italian Commedia dell'arte, which was known for its improvisatory nature and blatant use of specific stock characters in order to deliver a refreshing but familiar performance. He would be able to make his first bits of success under the patronage of Philippe I, Duke of Orleans. This sizable connection was also allowed for Molière and his troupe to share the Petit Bourbon, which was one of the more popular theaters at the time, with the renowned company of Thibaut Filorio, whose eye for Commedia dell'arte would be of great use to Molière later when he decided to reinvigorate his style. During this new chapter in his life, he would also officially take on the stage name Molière. This was done to help hide the shame that his father might hold for him as an actor during this time. Under his new patronage, he would reinvent the style and begin to move towards his trademark style of farce and mockery. Plays such as The Bungler and The Doctor in Love were good examples of this, but not many plays from this era survived. The Doctor in Love was a follow-up to a tragedy developed for a performance for Louis XIV at the Louvre, and it was able to gain some favor with the court and the king himself, giving him a solid foothold in his performances in Paris. But the first real taste of his biting comedic style would manifest itself in The Affected Young Ladies. This play would garner him some much-needed renown, but at the same time a great deal of unneeded criticism, with its blatant nature of mocking the French Academy, which was used to establish rules for the theater. Following the events of his first foray into performing in Paris, Molière would begin to make a name for himself in a very big way, whether the press was good or bad. The main reason for disregarding what type of press he received was due to two things. He had a great relationship with King Louis XIV, and also had him star in some of his later plays, and he wished to create the kind of comedy that felt more relevant to him, and to secure his objective of criticizing customs through humor. He would go on to create a large repertoire of simultaneously famous and infamous comedies, such as Tartuffe, Don Juan, and The Misanthropy. Some of these plays would be banned or held to the highest degree of censorship by the clergy or by the courts, due to his use of social commentary against such things as the upper class, medical science, and unlearned girls of the bourgeois. He would also work in cahoots with the likes of Jean-Baptiste Lully to advance music in his works, and Pierre Beauchamp for the development of the stylish comedic ballads. Molière would go down as one of the greatest writers of theatrical comedy despite his outright criticisms, betrayals by a patron, and the courts and churches' movements to have him rid of his works. As far as influence is considered, Molière was a tour de force with his use of originality and extensive development of farce comedy and its intermingling with other genres. His first great contribution to theater was the amount of respect he had for Italian commedia dell'arte and his implementation of it in his known works. He was known to use stock characters, but typically put them under a guise of a different costume or name with some minor tweaks here and there. The use of this practice allowed him to essentially recycle some of the characters with relative ease without the consequence of creating material that was redundant or seen as repetitive. The improvisatory nature of the commedia dell'arte was also a very important tool for Molière in order to create a comedy that would appear to think on its feet and not skirt the boundary of rigidity that French tragedy and verse approaches tended to carry with them. The use of masks also made its way over to Molière's works, but not with the intention you may think. Masks were typically used to accentuate the ludicrous nature of the comedies of the time, with them sometimes being much larger than the character's body, or to display prominent characteristics of the characters in those roles. Molière actually used these masks as an instrument to hide the true nature of the flawed characters he inserted into some of his social commentaries in order to accentuate the duality of different emotions he wanted to focus on. Molière's use of social commentary is one of the most important features next to his careful planning of form in his plays. He would cover subject matters that others felt were too risky to enact on stage, like his approach to Tartuffe, which is a commentary on religious hypocrisy, was a massive step on the toes of the clergy. His mocking of the French Academy and the affected young ladies made for a huge balk against the rigidity of the unity rules set in line with the day, as well as the use for blank verse or regular verse in different settings. His focus on the duality of different subjects made the entire comedic experience more organic, and it felt like a more real performance than the usual folly of comedies before him. These dualities in social commentary focus on things such as vice versus virtue, intelligence versus narrow-mindedness, and opposition versus attraction, with an effect that makes for a much lusher and spectacle-like comedy experience as a whole. His desire for a comedy that was closer to that of what we would experience in a real social situation mixed with the flair of the rebellious formality turned his productions into something that the audience wasn't going to predict or enjoy without some sort of reaction or callous. With the inclusion of music in his comedies made the plays more complex and more well-rounded experience entirely. His works with Jean-Baptiste Lully allowed for the musical strides within his works to further accentuate the performance, and Molière's greatest gift was the Neapolitan approach that he took to these works, with focusing on a combination of theater, music, and dance. This combination was done in such a way that it didn't let any particular element outshine the other, thus making for an experience unlike any other. His close working relationship with his troupe combined with him being both an active actor and a playwright made for a much more lucrative rehearsal setting. This approach to putting on a production also allowed for him to make changes on the fly during rehearsals. And then finally, Molière's most important approach to any piece was a lack of rigidity. He would use formal and colloquial dialogue without any kind of pause. He would use verse and blank, sometimes simultaneously, and he even melded the styles of ballet and comedic theater together into something beautiful that he presented to the king himself. His dedication to his craft and his attention to detail made for shockingly fun words that didn't lack in any creative element. His works experienced a reinvigoration of popularity during the French Revolution and became much more popular amongst French culture as a whole. The man lived to act and died acting with dedication and an undying love for theater. And I would like to thank these different websites for giving me the information I needed to make this paper. Wikipedia was used, Britannica.com, the book History of Theater, 10th edition, theculturetrip.com, shakespearetheater.org, the Tartuffe performance that I found on YouTube, and discoveryfrance.net. Thank you.